Welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. I am absolutely pumped for today's engineering explainer. Look, if you've been following our track on smart contract security, and specifically the course on access control and authorization flaws, well, you know we've been deep in the trenches together. In our previous explainer on debugging and root cause analysis, we actually found the structural flaws in our digital vault. We figured out exactly how the bad actors were sneaking in. But today we're putting on our hard hats. We are transitioning from simply finding that flaw to drawing up the actual blueprints to fix it. We're applying mitigation strategies.
Think about the contrast between finding a bug and actually fixing it. An exploit is essentially a broken lock, right? It's the open door we discovered in our last debugging session. But our mitigation? That needs to be a heavy-duty, reinforced padlock. Finding the bug is a great first step, for sure. But today, we are rolling up our sleeves to reinforce those access boundaries so nobody can ever pick that lock again.
So, here's our literal blueprint for today. We're going to cover from diagnosis to repair, choosing a mitigation strategy, building the testing matrix, executing the build cycle, documenting your fix, and finally, securing the state machine. Let's dive in.
Section 1. From diagnosis to repair.
We're stepping into the first phase here. And listen, diagnosis is really only half the battle. Pointing out a broken pipe is helpful, but real engineering requires a verifiable, targeted patch. You have to actually fix the plumbing. As the old mantra goes, diagnosis finds the leak, but mitigation rebuilds the pipe. We all know about the infamous dev tears that get shed when a massive exploit is found in your code. It's stressful, it's totally chaotic, but the crucial thing to remember is that practical implementation and test-driven validation will dry those tears right up. Once you prove unequivocally that your fix actually works, you can sleep soundly again.
Moving on to Section 2, choosing a mitigation strategy. Heading over to the drafting table, we basically have 4 main tools in our toolbox to secure our digital bank vault. Because there isn't just one way to build a lock, right? We have explicit guards, role hardening, invariant checks, and 2-step flows. Applying these correctly and knowing exactly which tool to pull out for which specific vulnerability is actually a core part of the hands-on learning programs we run over at Forge College. Let's break a couple of these down so you know exactly how they operate in the wild.
Let's zoom in on the first one, the explicit guard. I want you to think of an explicit guard as the vault's bouncer. It's a single-purpose require statement or a modifier that checks the caller's identity or maybe other preconditions before any sensitive state changes happen. It is highly visible, it's completely unambiguous, and it stops unauthorized actors right at the front door before they even get a peek inside the vault. Then we have the invariant check. Now, if the explicit guard is the bouncer at the front door, the invariant check is the vault's internal wait alarm on the floor. It's a post-condition assertion. Basically, it prevents state transitions from ending in forbidden states. So if the total balance of the vault suddenly drops below what it should mathematically be, the alarm trips and the system reverts the entire transaction. You didn't just stop the thief. You literally rewound time so the theft never even happened. Pretty cool, right?
All right, Section 3. Building the testing matrix.
Here is a hard truth in Web3 security. Building a brand new heavy-duty lock doesn't mean much of anything if you don't aggressively try to pick it yourself. This 3x3 testing matrix formalizes our attack plan. We have reproduction tests, closure tests, and regression tests. A reproduction test shows the exploit still works pre-fix, meaning the unauthorized call actually succeeds. A closure test proves your fix stopped it, so the call reverts with an error. And the regression test? That confirms legitimate flows still work perfectly. A true engineer proves their mitigation by showing the exploit fail and the normal operations succeed. Which brings us to a very funny but unfortunately very common question in smart contract development. Did we lock out the actual owner? It is so incredibly easy to get overzealous with your new security guards and accidentally lock the front doors permanently. Regression tests ensure that the bank manager can still actually enter the bank. Remember, we want to stop the attackers, not the entire business. Section 4. Executing the build cycle. This is where we shift our focus to the actual execution phase. We're running our newly patched code through the absolute gauntlet to make sure it holds up under pressure. This is your master checklist. 1. Local tests pass. 2. Exploit reproduction fails. 3. Targeted code review. 4. Fuzzing. 5. Documented evidence. I want you to treat this exactly like a pre-flight checklist on a commercial airplane. Every single step here needs to be completely checked off before mitigation is considered complete. If even one step is missing, you do not take off. You go right back to the drafting table. I want to highlight step 4 real quick because it's an absolute game changer. Fuzzing reveals the edge cases you forgot existed. Fuzzing is essentially throwing random, chaotic, massive amounts of junk data at your new lock. It ensures that your mitigation holds up against completely unknown, bizarre bypass attempts that you, as a rational human being, wouldn't even think to write a unit test for.
Section 5. Documenting your fix.
Okay, I know, groans all around. It's the dreaded paperwork, but filing the patent paperwork for your new engineering marvel is just as crucial as building it. A perfect validation report has these specific components: the root cause identified, the specific mitigation you chose, your test evidence and commands, and the trade-offs, things like gas costs, complexity, or user experience friction. Doing this cleanly illustrates the difference between a hacker and the professional engineer. You want future auditors to look at your code and know exactly why a check was added, and exactly what it cost the system to add it.
And finally, Section 6. Securing the state machine. This is where we zoom out and establish the ultimate mental model for smart contract security. Treat authorization as an invariant in your state machine. Seriously, I want you to write that down. The crucial point here is that this is the golden rule of blockchain engineering. Everything we've discussed today, every lock, every bouncer, every alarm, ties back to this single powerful concept. Authorization isn't just a feature, it's a fundamental invariant of your state machine.
Let's see how this builds using the classic rule of 3, right on a timeline. 1. Preconditions, happening before execution. 2. Transition, the actual state changes. And 3. Post-conditions, happening after execution. Your explicit guards, they sit right at the preconditions. Your invariant checks, they sit at the post-conditions. Together, they perfectly secure the transition in the middle. It's just beautiful engineering.
And that wraps up today's explainer. You now know how to diagnose a leak, choose the right mitigation, run it through the testing gauntlet, and document it like a total pro. I highly encourage you to take these blueprints and apply them directly to your own code today. And if you want to dive even deeper and really master these concepts, head over to forge.college. It is packed with deep dives into this exact subject and plenty of other vital Web3 topics. But before you go, ask yourself, if your smart contract was attacked tomorrow, would your latest fix stand up to the gauntlet, or would it just be another broken lock? Thanks for learning with me, and keep building securely.